Player appreciation. No sooner do I write it than I begin to mix up what I mean. Is this sending meant to be sharing my appreciation for my players, or about how players show appreciation? I don't think the two can be safely disentangled. This is actually the second time I have attempted to make this entry. The first time I had a bullet point list that I wanted to improvise my way through on a live hike. It was supposed to be more earnest that way. Instead, I rambled for 20 minutes before realizing the camera turned off at some point. On this second sending, I think I'll try and stay under my word limit. I've been fortunate to be pursuing milestone play full-time for about 1.5 years now. Throughout, I have been careful not to overload myself, terrified of burnout. Or at least that's the excuse I use to cushion laziness. True or not, burnout is a scary idea when pursuing a creative endeavor, and one common to game masters of all breeds. Tempering my schedule is the most direct means of preventing the drain of burnout, but not the only way. Burnout occurs when you have more energy going out than being replenished. Rather than just limit my workload, I have focused on taking in inspiration and motivation when it is presented to me. Being a game master is often thought of as a thankless role, where the players just show up on game day. You have to spend time between sessions prepping. Where the players get to ruin the plans you spent so much time creating. Where the long-term villain ends up face down in a sewer after his second appearance for his name to be forgotten and simply referred to as Fancy Cat. Or sometimes you end up with way too specific examples, but it's fine. Don't worry. I'll come up with something new next week, and it'll be original and unique and not cliche at all. Just give me a break. But see, that is where burnout begins. Not in time spent writing, not in the imbalance between GM prep time versus player game time. Burnout happens when there is more going out than coming in. And that very perspective of having things taken away is what can lead to burnout happening so much faster than it otherwise would. Instead, I have spent the last year learning how to receive from my players, to let their actions replenish my inspiration and motivation. The simplest and hardest of these means is to view player actions as a finding of the true story, rather than the GM trying to write the perfect story for the party, knowing that you are only creating part of it and allowing the players and dice to gift you back what the true narrative is. This isn't a new thought, I have known it for a while, but my technique was imperfect, and the small friction points are much easier to see when the amount of games you run goes up tenfold. Beyond story, the players give so much if only you learn how to see it. Appreciation is very much like love in that there are many different languages to express it, but if you don't understand the language, the positive energy will not be absorbed. Refocusing attention from what is falsely taken to what is truly given is the greatest weapon against burnout that I have found. Having been blessed with so many players over the past 1.5 years has helped me to understand the variety of love languages that exist between players and their game masters. First and foremost, I do want to reiterate that I am in a more niche situation than generic game masters due to my professional role. Yes, I am paid for a lot of the work that I do. Not all of it, though. I run free community games as well as continued home games with friends. But for a majority of my current games, yes, I am paid, which allows me to spend the time others work in more ordinary jobs, crafting their games. Currently, this is my job, and I wholly appreciate the people that allow it to be so. Even more so, I have had multiple players tip me extra, which dumbfounds me. But in a world where money is required to exist, this is the most direct line of players saying, "I see what you are doing, and I appreciate it." This is the cleanest example I can give for player appreciation, but it certainly is not the most common. Similar to payment, but more common among the bulk community, is gift giving. Whether for birthdays, holidays, life milestones, gift giving is integrated into our lives. Now, I don't like gift giving. I really don't. I never know what to give people. I hate the socially implied and guilt-inspired forced reciprocity of it all. More than the giving, I do not enjoy receiving gifts because it heightens the beginning factors. I don't do gifts. Over the winter holidays, I was blessed with 2, let's call them acts of kindness to spare myself. One of my groups conspired to essentially send a digital holiday card of cash, while a separate, independent player shipped me some physical props they had made for games that would never personally get to be played in. In a time of year meant to show appreciation, they did so. More recently, I had a player custom order minis for the entire party purely out of appreciation for the party helping them get into the hobby. Out of these giving examples, this is probably my favorite because it doesn't directly include me. It is a general expression of player love throughout the whole table, and it only requires a bit of deliberate attention to let that generosity fill you up. Now, these examples are wonderful, but all of them can be boiled down to money. However thoughtful, they require cash. I promise. We are moving on. Next up, we have a whole host of appreciation languages about intentionality. First, we have art. With the widespread nature of live-streamed games, fan art is something that makes a creator's heart sing. I have had multiple players produce art for our games. Whether it is a trained artist or someone photoshopping a handful of Googled images together, all of it is an act of love for the game and the table. Opening up my computer to see a new group photo, a minor RP scene that spoke to a player, or a highly designed runic spell circle still astounds me. Once again, these acts, these creations are not for me. They're for everyone, but it fills up my cup all the same. Continuing on the artsy path, we have writing. Due to language arts being more interacted with than the fine arts by the average person, this is a less daunting task for most players if it isn't their exact wheelhouse. Whether it is a character's backstory, a personal journal entry about a major event, or a private note signposting a character's future, all of these show a player's investment in the game and feedback to me. An offshoot of this section is actually more work on my end, but I've had players request additional in-world information on places, lore, and stories. They then craft their characters to fit. I even have had a player pre-make a list of location-based colloquialisms to better integrate the character's mindset with their home city. Not all player writing is a 20-page backstory, though I certainly appreciate those as well. Likewise, not all writing need be creative. One of the simplest ways some of my players give back to me is thoroughly unoriginal. They take notes. Let me repeat that. They take notes. No imagination required, no time outside the table. Just the simple act of taking notes does a plethora of things. I feel listened to, as if the time I have spent crafting the world and plot matters. The players have a reference in the future for something that isn't me. The game overall plays faster because there is less arguing about who they need to talk to about what. The simple role of note-taker is a player that should be protected from all harm. And here's the best part. It isn't even a task for the player. Not everyone will do it. Not everyone can do it. There are some players who simply process information by taking notes, and I appreciate them for it. Similar to the note-taker is the mechanics player. Within the subculture, in some situations they get called out as rules lawyers or power gamers. But here, they are a blessing. The mechanics-focused player is someone whose own version of enjoyment and processing of the game provides to the table and the game itself. They don't master the rules to outdo the GM. Rather, the time they spend on it is how they show they care about the game. Their mastery of the mechanics is a boon to the GM when they can rely on the player to call out a niche circumstance or a missed roll. The GM has a lot to do, and having a player that can help them, that's a blessing. A minor sidestep for my particular situation from the mechanics player is the tech player. For someone who runs so many games online, I am not a tech wizard. I'm a tech barbar. Having someone that actively helps improve the whole online experience for the table is once more a blessing. Both the mechanics player and the tech player add to the table and add to myself simply by making their knowledge and means of interaction available. Instead of draining my cup, they're adding to it. The final player type I have for you to add to your cup is the player of complete acceptance. There's a reason the abbreviation for a player of complete acceptance is the same as for a personal care assistant. A PCA is a player that does not waste what you give them. Being a game master means making a lot of on-the-spot calls. It means knowing more of the plot than the player sometimes, and them not understanding why certain cause-effect reactions happen. It means crafting an experience and the losses that sometimes happen to get there. The player of complete acceptance is there with you, following along for the ride and accepting every twist without argument. It seems natural to enjoy having such a player, but it is their very willingness that can make them go forgotten. It is easy to remember the rough spots of a game. It's fully recognizing the players that are there with you, no matter what, that adds a lip to your cup to prevent spills. As I said at the beginning, this sending blurs the line between whether it is about how players show appreciation and appreciating the players you have. But that is because, like the game itself, appreciation is volleyed back and forth. Players show their appreciation by adding to the game and the table experience. In learning to recognize all the ways they add to the game, I appreciate them for it. Yes, I put in great effort to create wonderful gaming experiences. Even as a professional, though, I only have so much in my cup to share around. By uncovering my vessel, by opening my eyes to what all is being brought, the others can refill what is missing. At a truly communal table, nothing can be taken. The table is for giving. And however much I don't like it, a part of giving is receiving. If the solution to an empty cup is an overflowing one, I suppose that will have to do. This is my SendingKenku. Few burdens must be shouldered on your own. You just have to learn how to accept the help available, whatever means or form it takes.